All right. Are there any questions? Any other questions, or any? I guess. Should I elaborate any more on any questions that have already been asked? Of course, you. This is your only chance to ask questions. There will be no more questions for the rest of the class. So that's understood, right? Last chance. I mean, that's how you learn. You got to ask questions in the beginning, and then good luck to you. You know. So how many of you guys have actually used some InDesign before? A little bit. All right. InDesign's pretty awesome. Don't be scared of it. Just don't be scared of it. It can't hurt you. You know, it's more scared of you than you are of it, really. But it is an involved app. There's a lot going on. You're gonna see a lot of little buttons and little gimmicks, and well, not gimmicks, but lots of options, lots of choices. It's very powerful. And it is the program to use if you're working with lots of text. So here's my little preamble. I'll try to go through it fairly quickly. This class will probably run the full 2 hours, even with 4 people in it. It's a pretty... I mean, there's a lot on InDesign that is not even in the handout. And note on the handout, I don't really stick to the handout. It's there, but... you could definitely take notes and stuff like that, but I'll probably be throwing out a lot more than is just on the handout. I tend to go on the quicker side, so here's the deal. It's on you guys to let me know when I've gone too fast. If you are behind, if you didn't get something, that's cool. It's going to happen. You just need to let me know, because I cannot read your mind, and I'm not going to know. I'm going to keep going, and then if it's 5 minutes later and you're 5 minutes behind, and that's going to cost the class 5 more minutes. So tell me immediately if you need me to repeat or just show anything again at all. Doesn't matter. I don't mind doing it. I do it all week long. So that's basically it for the class. Those are the class rules. Also, no biting. Okay, that's been a problem in the past. I've had people have to wear sports retainers and stuff, and an occasional straitjacket. The program that we're going to be using is the newest edition of InDesign. InDesign is a quirky little program, as you guys are going to find out. And one of the reasons for that is because it was actually not developed by Adobe. Does anybody know who developed it? No, that's fine. It was developed by Macromedia, who also made a little program called Flash, you might have heard of. Yeah. And they made Fireworks, and Dreamweaver is the other big one that's still popular. Fireworks is goodness. Only people who kind of grew up with it use it, because Photoshop does everything it does. Things are okay. It's not completely alien to the Adobe setup. There's a lot of similarities. Adobe has incorporated a lot of stuff into it to kind of homogenize all their applications, but it's got a lot of weird little quirks, as you're going to see. Like, for just one example is the color picker is crazy weird, and it kind of sucks, but there's ways to work around it and use it. But I don't like it like I like Photoshop. So if you've used Photoshop or Illustrator or both, you will see some similarities. You're going to be a little ahead of the game there. So you're going to be in good shape in that regard, okay? It's about $20 a month, I want to say. And you get a 1 month free trial if you download it from Adobe. There may be older versions available to just buy outright. You're going to be looking at eBay for that kind of stuff. Adobe's not going to sell it to you because they like money too much. And of course, we have it here in the lab. The special move of InDesign, really, and you guys can go ahead and click on it down there and open it up. It's a hot pink icon. Yeah, 15 minutes is late, you know, and that's actually, now that you bring that up, just FYI, we don't tend to open the door if you're more than 15 late. And if you call us, we'll probably tell you, yeah, you might want to reschedule if you're more than 15 late. So, I know, we have to be tough. We have to be harsh these days. Blah, 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 blah. So, InDesign special skill, back to that. And you guys can go ahead and open it up. And I'll talk about the screen here in a minute. But we're in the program now. It is a layout program. Layout design. All right? That's its speciality. It is not a photo editor, for example. You want Photoshop for that. In fact, it's like a pain in the butt to just brighten up an image in there. You know, cropping's easy, but something simple as brightness contrast, that's not really what it does. I'm sure there's a way to do it, and there's some kind of plug-in. That said, though, people do utilize it for the majority of their workflow. And it can also do web, although we're not really going to be looking at much of that tonight. Its real advantage is multiple pages and text. Okay, it is the go-to product for multiple pages and text. If you just want to make a flyer or a poster or something like that, you could use Photoshop to do that. And I mean, I wouldn't knock you for it. I mean, I do that sometimes. But if you're doing multiple pages, so think magazine, newsletter, catalog, you get the idea. Don't do it in Photoshop. You're going to have to do it a page at a time, and it's going to suck. In InDesign, you can have all your pages up at any moment. So here's an analogy for y'all. Think PowerPoint, set of slides, pages. It's not exactly the same, but it's kind of what we're going to be doing here. So you can see all your slides, you can rearrange the order, etc. You can do that in InDesign. So that's what it's designed to do. The other big thing that it's good at is text. Yeah, and Photoshop can have text and Illustrator can have text, but not the way InDesign does. Not the way you can control the paragraphs and save your styles and the minutia. I mean, you name it. Anything you can do with type, you can do it inside InDesign. It's king of type. All right, let's go ahead and start doing some stuff. I'm starting to get bored of hearing myself here. So let's go and create a new document. These are recents, even though I didn't open any of these. I think they're just sort of like come with the program kind of things. So I'm going to hit new. And I'm going to get this window. This is the new way that it looks. It's not going to look like this in your handout because they changed it on us. They're always doing that. Always changing. It's usually for the better. But there's still things that they just haven't fixed and never will. It's just beyond me. Anyway, we're going to do a brand new page here. Now, if you just double click over here, don't do it. But if you double click over here, you'll open it up. But if you want to customize it, you can over here. You can make it as wide as you want or as tall as you want. Okay, we're just going to keep it like this, 8.5 by 11. Notice how it says 6 pages. Now, it's nice. We can add or remove pages once we hit create down there. All right. But if you wanted 100 pages off the bat, you could have that, right? We're really not going to change anything, but I'm just going to kind of go over this stuff. You can have columns. You can have a gutter is the space between the columns. You got margins on all sides. The standard default is 1/2 inch. And also, if you're not into inches, you got some other options. And the dreaded picas. Picas. Picas are like weird. It's like 6 picas to an inch. It's an old letterpress unit of measure that's almost deceased, except in stuff like this. Points and pixels are virtually the same thing. Millimeters, of course. Centimeters, that's metric. I have no idea what Ciceros is. You got me. I'll have to Google that one. And notice how there's not a resolution. Any Photoshop people in here know about the resolution? pixels per inch. And you guys ever do a Google image search and look at the numbers underneath the pictures? And the higher the numbers are better. Yep. So it's just detail. So the higher the number, the better. You don't have that in here. Don't have to even worry about it because it's technically going to be vector-based like Illustrator. So it's more concerned with math than pixels. More concerned with direction and angle and things like that. Although you can put raster images into it, and we'll do that a little bit tonight. So let's go ahead and hit create here. By any means. So sorry about that. Now that we're all sitting here looking at the interface, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on. I'm going to go kind of quickly, just kind of save some time. But if you've got questions, let me know. All right. So start over here on the left. This is the toolbar. We're going to use a lot of different tools today. We're not going to learn every one of them. And there's some that I don't even know what they do. And I'm fine with that. You don't have to use everything in there. One thing that I do want you to know about the toolbar is that some of the tools, I want you to look real close. Some of them have like a little triangle in the lower right corner. And that little triangle means that there are sub-tools that live in there. They're like sister tools. And to get those out, I'm not a big fan of this design feature, but hey, that's how they did it. You can either hold the left button down on it, or you can click the right button, and then you click on the one that you want, right? And I know there's a lot of fun stuff to click on. Oh, I am a big supporter of playing and learning from playing, but I just wouldn't do it tonight. I'd do it another night. Because tonight it'd probably just kind of be counterproductive and slow us down a little bit. Because it is easy to turn something off and then you're kind of stuck a little bit. Okay. So if you don't have 6 pages, it's not a problem. Don't even worry about it. Ain't no big deal. We're going to create some new pages a little bit later. So don't worry if stuff looks a little different. Up here, this is a very cool spot. I want you to switch between this first tool here is called the selection tool. This is like the king of the tools. And if you've used Illustrator, it's essentially the same thing. You notice that you got a certain, I guess, assortment of options up here along the top with that tool, but then click on the type tool and notice that it's totally different. You've got all your text and paragraph options. Now, all this junk right here, it's in other places, but it's up here because this is the MVP of stuff that you're going to want to mess with. There'll be other things, but boy, this is your dashboard. This is your go-to quick access menu, whatever. I don't know what they actually call it, but it's very, very useful. And I would recommend to use it a lot. Then if you go to the very, very top, you're not going to need to worry about this row too much, okay? But if you go to the very, very top, you've got your application menus, your tabs, if you will. And this has been with computing since the dawn of computing, so you guys are probably used to this. So yeah, file save, file open, that's up there. All that fun stuff. And we might go up there a couple of times. Everything that the program can do is up here somewhere in one of its menus somewhere. But they put them in more convenient places as a button to make it quicker and easier for us. And then over on the right side, these are your application windows. So what they are is usually something sort of specific in what they're going to deal with, and they're going to allow you to control and adjust some settings based on what they're going to be working with. So to give you an example, color, right here. You see that one called color? And then we got another one next to it called stroke. That's going to control the stroke. This one has got a color picker in it, so you can pick a color, and I want you guys to go ahead and pick a color. It could be any color you want. So And there are multiple places to change colors that I'll go over. Yes. So let's actually put something out here, and here, what we mean by here is this is the stage. This is where the action's going to happen. All the fun. And this is literally your piece of paper, right? The scroll wheel, you can go up and down, especially when you got multiple pages. We don't yet. Again, I want to, or we at least don't have many. I want to compare this again to PowerPoint. Whether you're sliding left or right or up and down, you're going through the pages. There's an order to things inside here. You know, two-dimensional, forward and backward. So pretty easy to kind of wrap your brain around. And let's actually put something on here. So there's all kinds of different things that we can add to a document. One being pictures, one being text, one being shapes and designs. And that's the first thing that we're going to look at. We're going to just make some simple shapes, and by doing so, we're going to learn how to maneuver and we're going to learn how to manipulate different elements inside the program, because there's a kind of a way that it likes to do it. And so the first thing that we need to do in order to make a shape, and that's essentially all we're doing, is I want you to go and I want you to pick a tool. It's almost right in the middle of your toolbar on the left side, and it's going to be called the rectangle tool. And if for some reason there's not a rectangle down there, that's okay. Right click, it's got two sisters, so there's a chance it's one of those. Just kind of depends on what the last class was doing. But we'll start with the rectangle. We're going to look at the others. Don't worry. Make sure you got a color, because if you don't, you're going to have white, and white on white just doesn't look that cool. In this case, it doesn't. All right. When you make this shape, it's very simple. It's corner to corner. Click, hold, and drag. Just like you would in Word or Publisher or PowerPoint. It's kind of the same idea. So click, hold, and drag. Make yourself a rectangle there. It's fun. You can make yourself a couple if you want. But here's what you don't do. Well, I don't recommend you do this with the tool. Don't just click and let go. Because if you do that, it's going to ask you, hey, well, how big you want to make it? And then you got to say that big. But if you click and drag, you can make it any way you want. And you can change it and modify it and all that fun stuff right up until the point where you let go of the mouse. And then at that point, you've got your shape, but you can still change things about it. So once we've made a few shapes, oh yeah, one other thing you can do. And nothing is set in stone here, by the way, but you can go ahead and change your color if you want. The one that I had selected there, and we're going to get back to what selections are in a second, that's the one that changed color. And I make a new one. Maybe I want that one to be blue, right? So I've got some different options. These are just the bare basics to kind of give you guys an idea. So, we're playing with Duplos still. But let's go ahead and cut to the chase and go ahead and get out the most important tool that you're going to ever use. Ever. And that is the black arrow. The selection tool. And as you may have guessed, the selection tool is, think of it like it's your hand. It's like a human hand, and all the other tools, you pick them up with this tool or something like that. So it selects things. So click on your different rectangles there, one by one, and notice that they get an outline around them like that. When they're selected, they kind of get a glow. It's blue, and the reason it's blue is because we're on the blue layer, and we may get to that here in a minute, but that's essentially the idea. So the ones that you have highlighted or selected, they're the ones you're going to affect with whatever you're going to start doing. Okay? So the first and simplest thing you can do is move them around. So if you click and drag on them, notice you can move them about. And you can even move them off the page. Hey, that's fun. stack them on top of each other. Although that actually gets into the third dimension here, which we'll talk about as well. Moving them around. Some of you guys might have been brave and gone ahead, and I applaud that. You can click and drag on any of the white boxes to scale it. Make it longer, make it wider, make it taller, make it shorter. One fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. Okay. And then there's another thing you can do. You can rotate them as well. All without having to switch to a different tool. It's all built in. It's very nice. If you go, so you have to go to the corners. Yeah, you have to go to the corners. And if you go to the corners and just outside the corner, but not right on it, just outside it, it'll kind of turn into a double-ended arrow, elbow macaroni type shape. And if you click and drag, then you can rotate. If you hold shift while you do that, if you hold shift down while you rotate, then it will rotate in 90-degree or 45-degree increments. That can be handy. And does anybody else know, does anyone know the little trick that shift will do for scaling?
Keeps it all the same size.
Yes, it keeps it, yep. Keeps your proportional, your X and Y axis proportional. So if you increase, I'm holding shift right now, see how it's basically the same shape, just a different size. If I let go of shift, then it's going to go all over, right? Also, as you probably have noticed, when you're starting to move stuff around, like you're going to see all these Star Wars-y lasers shooting around and stuff. That's what I like to think of them as anyway. See that? These lines, those are just guidelines. They're not going to print. They're not actually going to do anything. It is going to snap to them. We're going to leave that on, but you can turn that off. All right, I'm going to show you where, because it's important for you guys to know where this is. They're in the preferences menu. So just real quick, we'll look at that. We'll go up to preferences. Just go ahead and go to general. It's fine. It'll bring them all up. Okay. Everybody get to this menu okay? And inside there, you got all kinds of stuff that you can play with. I believe it's going to be, oh geez, I usually have to search around for this. Smart guides, I think is what it is. And, I'm pretty sure there's a way to turn them off in here if you look deep enough. I usually just leave them on though. Here, I bet I can find where it is. If I go to, yeah. There we go. So you could also go to view, guides and grids, and then if you uncheck smart guides, they'll go away. Obviously, the check mark is what you've picked, what you've got selected, what's turned on. No check mark, it's not on. Is everybody got a kind of a? Is everybody comfortable with what snaps are? Okay, good. If not, it's no big deal. I want to show you another thing. I know there's a lot of info coming at you at once, but we try to cram as much into 2 hours as we can. Whatever you've got selected, you, of course, can click and drag with your mouse, but if you need accuracy above all else, you can nudge it. Not Ted Nugent, nudge it. And what you do for that is you click the arrow keys on the keyboard. I usually do that with my other hand. Notice how it's just barely moving. You can move it one increment at a time that way, which can be awesome. So, and then I think the last thing I want to show you at this point, at least about using the select tool itself, is there's this little blue dot that's up by the corner and a little yellow dot that's up by the corner. I'm not really sure what the blue dot does off the top of my head. But the yellow dot is pretty fun. It can do some cool stuff. If you click on the yellow dot, it turns into 4 diamonds in the corners. Everybody got that far? And then if you drag those diamonds like that, you can kind of round off your shape and lose the corners that way. So that's pretty neat. I like it anyway. There's ways to make all different kinds of shapes that we're going to look at in a minute. Now, there's a lot of redundancy built into the program. And what I mean by that is there's like a lot of situations where you can do the same thing like 4 or 5 different ways and achieve the exact same end result, but there's 4 or 5 different places where they've put something, so I may do them in different spots, just kind of give you an idea of different places you can go. For example, changing colors of them in a second. What happens if you want to get rid of one? You want to get rid of it, you can just hit the delete button. Either delete button, really. There's a big delete button, which is the backspace button on a Mac. It would be backspace on a PC. Do that, it's gone. Gone forever. I'll never bother you again. Probably need to cover just a couple more things, and these will become second nature to you as you start to use the program more. If you want to select more than one thing at the same time, you can hold down Shift and click on multiple items and then kind of move them in sequence, right? You can also do this. You can start your click outside of all the objects. You're not touching any of them, right? And you can click and drag a box around them like so, and then let go and get everything that's inside kind of what you've lassoed in, what you've corralled, so to speak. Whoops. So that's how you can select multiple stuff. And we'll talk about grouping here in a moment as well. You can group things, which is very handy to be able to do. So what we're doing right here, super important. You got to be able to do all this stuff if you're going to use the program. This is how you move and position everything. Everything. Text, pictures, all of it. It doesn't do it itself. You got to decide where everything goes, and this is how you move it around. Any questions? All right. We're going to kind of learn about the skeleton before we go into the organs and the skin and all and the clothes, okay? So that's kind of what I'm going to do. We're doing ultra fundamental stuff. Now, does everybody have a different colored rectangle that they made after they made some of the first kind? Can you move that on top of one of the other ones, kind of like I did? Not all the way on top, but sort of partially on top and then partially sticking out on the side.
Is it cool if they're not rectangles?
Well, I don't know if I would call that cool, but no, yeah, it's fine if they're not rectangles, yeah.
Like, 'cause you don't-
Yeah, they're fine. They don't have to be rectangles. They're good. As long as you can kind of overlap them like that.
Oh, yeah.
So what I'm going to show you now is what's known as the, what do they call it? I kind of call it stacking order. I think they're going to call it arrangement, okay? So the default deal is whatever you throw out first is on the bottom, and newer stuff stacks up on top of it. That's default. If you don't change anything, that's how it's going to work. But let's say we do want to change something, and there's a couple ways to do it, but this is the most direct way to change it. I want this blue one underneath the green one, right? This is what I want. Or maybe I've got something like this. I want the blue underneath. I want the text on top, whatever. So what I need to do is really the easiest way to do this. There's another place to do it, but I would just do this. Right click on it. It's going to bring up a lot of options for you. But if you go down to arrange, and one that'll definitely get it there is send to back. Boom. And now it's all the way back. So you have sometimes up to 4 different options for how you want to arrange something. You have send backward or bring forward. That just moves them one step up. So I got 4 rectangles currently. That means I've got 4 different spots. So there's 4 different places it can advance or go down, right? But if I say send backward, that automatically takes it all the way to the bottom. And if I say bring to front, automatic all the way to the top. Does that make sense? Just like a deck of cards, basically. You're moving one card. You're moving the joker through the stack of the deck. Okay. So that's arrangement. Now, another way, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on it unless I get time at the end. For you Photoshop folk, and I'm one of you, there are layers. Okay, they're not out by default. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this. This is how you're going to get your layers window out. You're going to go up to window at the very top, and then you're going to go down to layers and just click that. And look over on the right, it should have popped up somewhere. Because under this window menu, you see all these options here. There's a lot. And notice how I only have a few with the check mark. That's because if I had everything out, I would have nowhere to even look at what I was working on. I mean, it would be a mess. Just a total mess. So that's why you usually only have a few out at a time. And they're customizable, and you can save which ones you have out and all that kind of stuff, although that gets a little more advanced. Anyway, layers can also help you with arrangement. You can have multiple layers, and you can say that you want certain things to just stay on the bottom all the time. And if we have time, I'll come back and I'll discuss this a little bit more with you guys. But see, I made myself a red layer now, so it's going to be in red. But I'm going to take that away for now. If we got extra time at the end, though, I will show you that. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you know Photoshop, it's pretty easy. But if not, it's still not hard. It kind of isn't. It's fairly intuitive, unlike a lot about the program. So, okay. Any other questions at all? All right. Let's change the color of some of them. Let's do that. So let's say I want to change the color of this one in the middle. Now, I want to show you immediately. I got 4 places I can go on my screen. You guys can totally decide which one you prefer, which one you like. So the first one is this strip down here in the color picker, right? I can always use that. That's always there for me. You can click inside this rainbow hue, whatever you would call this color map down here. You can drag the sliders. Notice that CMYK. Anybody know what that means?
Cyan, magenta, yellow, black.
Very good, yes. So we're in CMYK mode, which is sort of ink-based. RGB mode is light-based. It used to be a bigger deal, but here's some theory for y'all. It's not that big of a deal anymore. If you have done a whole project in CMYK and you find out at the end you need to make it RGB, it's probably not the end of the world. Your color may look a little different. Maybe not. It might look a bit different, but it's never been the end of the world in my experience. The end of the world is when you go ahead and click the print button when you're in RGB and it wants CMYK, and then your colors are going to be bogus, you know. So on that note, a little tidbit of advice. When you're doing anything for a screen, computer, movie, projector, mobile device, RGB is what you want. You're doing anything that you're going to print, RGB might be fine, but you might need CMYK, and here's what I would always recommend that you do is ask your printer or your vendor, hey, when I hand you this file, first of all, what file type do you prefer? And secondly, do you want it in RGB or CMYK or lab? But I doubt you're going to get lab. And I'm going to waste just one more second to show you something real quick, because I find this fascinating. So digital color space is in 3 dimensions. It's weird. Be ready for the weird. And we're going to see the side effect of this here in a moment when we look at the color picker and how it is arranged. These are some illustrations of it. Your color, you're somewhere inside this funky cube, but I liked these books. I don't know why these pictures are so small of them, but there were these books that this artist made, right? And as you flip through, each page is a slightly different page. So you're somewhere on one of these pages in this book. That's where your color is. Not only is there up, down, left, and right, but there's forward and backward as well. Okay? So it's pretty interesting. And then this is some RGB here. I don't know how red and green combine to make yellow. I can't tell you that, but that's how they do it. So basically, all you got to worry about is what colors you like. Okay? You don't need to, there's not a whole lot of figuring that needs to go on in it. Just go with the colors that you like. But in order to be able to pick those colors most efficiently, you may want to know this little bit of material here that we're going to cover. So let's change the color of another one, but instead of going down here to the color, or the swatches for that matter. Does anybody know what swatches are already? That's sort of a common word. So the swatches are your saved colors. If you ever like a color, you can totally save it to your swatches. It's like your palette, basically.
It's like going to Sherwin-Williams.
Yep.
Picking out colors you like.
Yep. Very much so. Except you get to paint with a click and remove with a click in an instant. So that's kind of nice. But yes, good analogy. So as you can see, I can click on any of these swatches and I can change it. Boy, these are some boring swatches though, but don't worry, we can make new ones. This is just your default set. It's kind of boring. Notice that they have values next to them. So you've got a CMYK value for each of the colors down there, which is kind of interesting. Okay. So we're going to change a color with the color picker, the traditional color picker. The color picker appears in many, many places, including the color window. And there are 2 separate things that you can change the color on. So once we change the color in the color picker, first I'm going to kind of segue into how the stroke works here in a minute, because stroke is pretty fun. So just pick one you want to mess with. It doesn't really matter to me which one. And let's go, well, actually I hate using this one because it's so small. But do you see at the very, 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 very bottom of your toolbar, there's a color picker? I don't typically use this one though, because it's tiny and it's hard to hit your target sometimes. It's also right here, front and center. See where I'm dancing my mouse here up top? So the solid squares, anybody already know what that represents from Illustrator class maybe? Anybody want to take a guess?
The solid is the field.
Yes!
And then the other one is the border.
Yes. Correct. Stroke is what they're going to call it, but it's the same thing. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And the way those work is it's all vectors. So it's all infinitely small lines connected to infinitely small points in space, right? So think geometry class. A fill is going to be inside those lines. And the stroke is going to ride the line. So those are the differences. All right. So if we click this first square, the arrow next to it, that brings up the swatch menu. Okay. And then I believe what you can do is double click on the color that you're currently in. So I double clicked on the red. And I can manipulate it in here with these sliders. If I go to an RGB method, it changes it a little bit. Let's see. Spot. Actually, let's cancel out of that. That isn't what I thought it was going to be. That is one option for changing your color down there that you've got. You've got that option. Sorry. Go down to the color window. This might actually be your best place to do this, I think. And then, yeah, that's what I wanted. Okay, so do you see there's a stroke and a fill down in the lower right down here in the color window as well? So double click 2 times fast on the one in the top left, and then you should get something that kind of looks like this. Isn't this hideous? So it's wild. Get ready for some craziness. So you can go up and down here, which this is actually your brightness slider. And then inside this space, you've got all manner of different colors. So it's kind of weird. You have to pick a XY coordinate here on the left cube. And then you have to pick a Z coordinate, I guess you want to say, here on the slider right there. Also, you can manually type in your RGB values. You can manually type in CMYK values, and then there's lab color, and I don't even know how lab color works. And then down here, you've got a hexadecimal, which is sort of the computer's name for whatever color you're on. And there's millions and millions of colors. Now, you get one that you like, and I don't really like the one I have, but I'm going to brighten it up, and I think it could be cool. Like a canary. Let's make it a little more orangey. There we go. Now, if I hit OK, I'm just going to start that color up. Or I could hit add a swatch, and that's what I'm going to do. And then now, I'm going to hit OK. It's changed my shape to a certain color. And I've got that color saved down here in my swatches. So I can apply it to other things as I need to. Okay? Right now, nothing that we've made has stroke so far. So far, no stroke. We can change that though. We're gonna. Notice that the stroke has the little no smoking Ghostbusters kind of red slash through it saying, I got nothing. I'm empty. I'm clear. But we are about to change that, my friends. So let's go ahead and look at what the stroke does. So pick one of your objects and go up to where that stroke is and just give it a color. I'm going to give mine pink. It may be hard to see this color at first though. That's because it's very, very thin. But I'm going to show you how to adjust the thickness of the width of the stroke here in just a moment. And I think two of you guys have had Illustrator before, right? Mm-hmm. You got have all of you on the back row had Illustrator? You played a little bit. So this is very similar to Illustrator. So if you've done this in Illustrator, it's almost exactly the same in InDesign. So, and I highly recommend, if you want to get into InDesign, I would also learn Illustrator at the same time because they're so close. They're not exactly the same, but they're much closer than they are to Photoshop. Photoshop's a whole other world. So.
What's the difference between the two?
InDesign and Illustrator?
Yes.
Illustrator is to design stuff, and InDesign is to lay stuff out, basically. It's just a different set of tools. But they work in the same environment. And here's my analogy for that, because I'm a big analogy guy. Submarines are different than ships, but they both work in the ocean. They're still closer than they are to a train or something. So they have different goals in the end. And here's basically where I would boil it down. You're not going to want to create your logo inside InDesign. It's just going to be clunky for that. Vector art, like graphics, screen print looking stuff, graphic art, the vector art that you see. Here's a big vector art go-to. U-Haul. The nerve. U-Haul trailers. They have all those custom designs on them now. And they're vector art, all of them. Look at your soda can. It's vector art. So it's everywhere. We don't think about it all the time. But that's what Illustrator's for. InDesign is for putting everything together and handling text. So that's probably the big difference. And Photoshop, of course, is for photos. I'm sure they could put it all into one giant program, but they like money. What can I say? They're like George Lucas. All right, so anyway, I went off on a little rant there. I'm sorry. You'll have to bear with me here. We're going to add a stroke on here. So this first one here is the one I have a stroke, so I can see that this hollow square donut is got a pink on it. But check it out. This number right here, 1 point, that means it's like super thin. So if I start pumping up the jam on that, now we can start to see what's going on here. A little bit more happening. You have the brush tool in Illustrator. You don't have it in InDesign because it's just not geared to do detail-y, fancy, pretty stuff. It's all about order and putting it together, fitting it in, and all that kind of stuff. Sorting. You've got a lot of other options for the stroke. There's like 2 of them here. I want to show you where the other ones are, just real fast, because they are useful and they are fun. Let's go back down to where our color window was, where we were playing with that. And let's hit the stroke tab, which is next to it. Now, you guys do not want to do this, but I'm going to do it just so you can see it better, okay? I'm going to move, and you know, just so you know, you can move these guys anywhere you want. I'm going to move it up here so you guys can see it a little better as I change things, so you're not having to go. And can everybody see it okay for the most part? The glare's not too bad tonight, but some nights it's like just horrific, so. If the glare ever gets on your nerves, I would be happy to pass along that information. Of course, I'm sure you guys would be completely polite, but they listen to you guys, you know, the students. Anyways, so my weight is 27 now, so that's kind of showing why it's so thick. Now, cap, when you change that, you're not going to really see much of a difference unless you've got a line. There's a line tool right there. See what we can do with that. Like that. Right. Again, the cap. The cap changes sort of the tip. It's kind of hard to see there, actually. Let me make it black. Did everybody find the line tool okay? Okay. I take silence as a yes. So silence is a absolutely yes. Some other things though, you want to select, if you have made a line, I want you to select the whatever shape you were initially putting the stroke on again, because we got to look at a couple of more options that you have on that. You can mess with the corners, so you can have like angled corners. You can have a bevel. There's possibly a way where you can even get more intricate with that. You can decide where they align. This is kind of fun. So by default, you're riding the line, but you can have everything on the inside. You can have everything on the outside. Let's see. It used to be, I bet it's not. No, it's not. I wonder if I can view it in that mode. I know how to do it in Illustrator. Preview mode? No. Let's leave it in normal. But basically the way that the vectors are, it's the same size. The stroke doesn't actually change the size of your original square. Okay, I'll say that again. The stroke does not change the size of your original square. Does anybody remember that old optical illusion with the 2 sticks that have arrows pointing inward and pointing outward, and they're exactly the same length? It's that idea, okay? The stroke is just decoration, basically. It's not part of the shape. Options. These are fun. I want you guys to use these. Think about it. I mean, honestly, if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna do a little bit of theory here because I think it's important. So let's look at something someone else has made, and hopefully we'll be able to see how they did it with what we've already learned. And I'm looking. Yeah, it's a little advanced. So, with the exception of the text and the pictures, you guys should be able to do most of this. What's getting weird on us here are these angles, but I'll show you how you can do that as well. And I was trying to find somebody that had made a fun border like we just made. Because you can do that. It's a really easy way to make some design. Because again, that's what this is all about, right? Design and functionality. You want to have, again, this is very theory heavy. Ideally, you want to have something that combines the best aesthetics with the most legibility and communicative power. That's what good design is, period. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. Of course, there's other things that you can have. There's other factors. Sometimes people just want something that looks weird or that's flashy. But for functional design, basic functional design, you want to combine good looks with good communication. It's that simple. So, again, I know I'm getting heavy into theory here, but hey, it's good to know this kind of stuff. I think it'll help your designs out. And furthermore, on that note, when you are trying to come up with a design, I would start with pencil and paper. And then worry about, how do I make it look that way, That's a good way to learn how to do stuff, how to do fun borders and things. Anyway, back to class. Sorry, I'm one for going off onto tangents, but this is a cool way you can get cool looking frames. I wouldn't really mess a ton with these things where they start and end. That's usually the settings that are probably most frequently used on the stroke. But there is one other thing that I wanted to show you. It appears only on the ones on the right side and the left side at the bottom of the toolbar. But where you see the stroke and the fill color swatches down there, in the top right corner, there's a little arrow you might see. Click that, and then you can reverse them back and forth. You can also do this to text, and also stroke text as well. We're about halfway through. Does anybody need a break? Anybody need to run to the bathroom or anything? It's totally okay if you... No? Okay. That's cool. All right. Let me cover a few more things. I will be going slightly on the quick side. If you don't get it, let me know. I don't mind stopping and going back and looking at it at all. All right. So we're going to learn a couple new things. We're going to actually learn 3 new tools real quick right off the bat. So we haven't really talked about navigation yet. But you are in charge of how you are going to perceive what you're working on. You get to pick. So never have to strain your eyes looking at something teeny tiny, because you can zoom in on it, and you should. So we're going to look at that tool. We're going to look at the zoom tool and the hand tool, which basically just moves you up, down, left, and right. It's basically your finger on an iPad. That's exactly what it is. So firstly, the very last tool looks like a little magnifying glass. See that little guy? Click him or her, depends. And they have a little baby magnifying glass. All right. Now, if your cursor should be a magnifying glass now. But if it has a plus in it, you're going to go in. So just go ahead and click a few times. I want you to zoom in on a shape you've got, kind of like I did right there. If you scroll the wheel, you're going to go up and down. You don't want to do that too much. Kind of want to keep it close. Keep it in the family. All right. And then if you need to zoom out, but we don't need to just yet, but when you do want to zoom out, here's an easy way to change it. If you hold down the Option key on your keyboard, it basically toggles it between in and out. And actually the Option key, hence its name, also on a PC it's the Alt key, alternate, basically does the opposite of whatever your tool normally does. It does either something related but different or opposite. So if it was a power drill, it would change it from spinning clockwise to spinning counterclockwise or something like that. Now that we're zoomed in, all right, you can use the hand tool to kind of move around, up, down, left, and right. So grab that tool. It's right above, it's the one right above the zoom tool. Looks like a little hamburger helper glove. And then click and drag. It's pretty easy, right? Everybody feel comfortable with that? There are these sliders on the right side and the bottom. They do the same thing. Honestly, I rarely ever use the hand tool. Actually, that's not true. I do use the hand tool a lot. I rarely go over here and click on it because there's a really cool cheat. You guys want to see it? Go back to the zoom tool. I'm sorry. Well, you could go to the zoom tool, but go to the select tool for me. And go ahead and just select the object that you got here. And, you know, just move it a little bit like I'm doing, right? You're here working. Well, now you need to pan over. Here's what you can do. With your other hand, hold down the space bar, and then you're going to turn into the hand tool. No matter what tool you're using, space bar turns it into the hand tool. That's pretty cool. I use that a lot now, and I didn't know that till like a year ago. So maybe two. So, you know, there's so much new stuff to learn here. I learn new things all the time to help speed up. There's all kinds of little tricks that you can get into like that. And now I want to show you how you can sort of break this shape down a little bit and make it custom. So we saw that example from before on the internet where they had some diagonals going across, and I'm guessing you guys are probably curious, like, how do they do that? Well, okay, everything inside here is made up of one of two things, unless it's text. Anchor points and paths, exactly like Illustrator. Anchor points are the dots, paths are the lines that connect the dots. Now, with the black arrow, you're always going to grab the entirety of the shape. You're gonna, when you click on it, you're automatically gonna select and change or move or whatever, in any way alter. You're gonna alter all the anchor points at the same time. But you can change things about one at a time if you want. And that is where the little white arrow comes in. So I want you to click on it. This can be a little tricky, so follow very closely behind me. I want you to pick one of the corners. Let's say the top left corner. I want you to click on it with the white arrow. I want you to click and let go. It usually works. I wonder what's wrong here. Oh, okay, I see what the problem is. Here's what we need to do. Click off of the shape with the white arrow. So you don't have anything selected now. So just click in the white of the paper. And then click on one and let go. And then click and drag. Like that. You should be able to do that. In fact, you can do whatever you want. You can go crazy with it. Right? You can move it wherever you want. If you got any trouble with that, just let me know. But that's basically how the white arrow works. You move one point at a time. You can move multiple points at a time, and you do that just by holding shift down as you click on them. But with the black arrow, you're automatically going to grab all four at the same time and, you know, move them at the same time. So it's pretty fun. Any questions? I'm not going too fast. Okay. I hope the silence didn't mean a yes on that one. Silence is like I get to pick what you guys said. I get to decide. Hey, there's another really cool trick. You may want to jot this down. This is one of my favorite hotkeys and most useful hotkeys. So we're in the middle of no. I mean, who knows where we are on the page? What if I'm way out here? I don't know where I am. I'm lost. Yeah, I'm sliding around here. I just see gray, right? Anybody remember this one? Anybody know? Okay. Fit on screen. It takes you back home. Basically, homing beacon, right? You hold down the command button and then hit the number 0, and boom, you're right back where you're trying to get. If only life were so easy. You know, but we have a lot more stuff to look at, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But I will leave you with a little philosophy here. I want you to ask yourself tonight, would life be better with an undo button? Would it? Would it really? At first, we're like, yes, that would be awesome. But, the more and more I thought about it, I was like, no. That would just change everything so much that it would just make you like a deity, It would just change it so much. But anyway, that's the silly stuff that I think about sometimes. Okay. Let me flip through here and make sure I haven't forgotten anything thus far. Because I know we got to talk about pictures, and I know we got to talk about text a lot, and I know we got to talk about pages. I think we're doing pretty good. All right. Really quick before we move on to that, using the sister tools of the rectangle tool, you can make some other shapes, including circles, which is nice because you may want circles sometime. So I want you to go back to where the rectangle tool was, except this time right click on it and grab the ellipse tool, and you're going to make ovals and stuff. But if you recall from before, if you hold down that shift button, you'll make perfect pie circles. Beautiful circles. Hey. Oh wait, I'm changing the stroke. Yeah, there we go. If you're trying to change the color of an object and it's just not happening, check and make sure you're not changing the stroke and instead of the fill. And what you do to change the fill is just go up there and click on it again, and then it should then apply to the fill. That's what just happened to me. Did you have a question? Oh, okay. I was like, kind of have a halfway raise. That's fine. So that's fun. That's how you make circles. All the same stuff applies. You can rotate them. Like if it's a perfect circle, it's going to look the same. But you can rotate an oval. You can stretch it, whatever. Put a stroke on it. Put a bird on it. Whatever you want to do. All right. Yes.
I lost my rainbow.
Your rainbow. Oh, your color picker.
Yeah.
So go up to Window.
Yeah.
And make sure you got color checked.
Okay.
And then inside that one is color and swatches. So make sure you've got that. Did that pop it back?
No, it's just a weird
Version of it?
I got it.
Oh, you got it. Okay. Because there's...
I had to click the Van Halen Died Her Down album there.
Which one now?
The white /
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a good one. I haven't heard that one before. If you ever do get way out there and like, these all have little X's that you may accidentally click. And don't worry, you can bring them back. I'm going to show you how. If anything ever gets insane, you can't find stuff, here's what you want to do. Go up to Window, and then Workspace, and then Reset Essentials, and that will take you right back home. I know it doesn't look the same, but I can pop them out. Notice they have these little fast forward rewind buttons. Those are noteworthy. You can kind of minimize them, and so they're up here. Like I'm clicking on one right now. It's teeny tiny, but it's expand collapse. Everything inside of it is designed to maximize your screen space. That's really what they're going for. And they sacrifice everything else for that. That's why everything's so tiny, little bitty buttons. That's just how they wanted to make it. Okay. So that's basically how you manipulate stuff inside. I'm going to move some of my items off the screen, because now we're actually going to pretend we're going to make something. Hey, let's go ahead and throw layers in here. You guys will be fine. I like layers. Layers are fun. So I already have my layers window out. Do you guys see your layers window? It's usually up here at the top by where pages and links are. Usually. If you don't have it, let me know. I can help you get it. And if it's totally not out there, you may have to go to window and then go down and check layers. Okay. Now something about, a little side note, pun intended, anything you've got over here hanging around on the side, this is interesting and this is cool because Photoshop does not do this. You hit the print button and it is not going to print. It's like it's not even there. Only what's on the page, the white area, is going to print. But you can just like hold stuff over there. Think of it like your desk and the paper is your paper. So you can set stuff aside. When you hit save, it'll still be there when you come back. Things you might copy later. I mean, I've seen people have like dozens of things they just commonly use in any design copied and pasted right there to grab anytime they want. Right? Again. Oh, let's try to find. Sorry. I need to make a note to myself to have this stuff all ready to go. I need some big ones. Oh, goodness. It's too big. But like little, I don't know. I don't even know what they call them. These squares here, or, you know, so you don't have to remake it every time, or, you know, sometimes you'll see the lines between paragraphs or the little star at the end of a story, stuff like that. You know, it's just way quicker to grab it that way. Okay. In your layers window, so everything we've got is currently on layer 1. Okay. So let's make, before we add a new layer, let's go over here, let's grab a rectangle, let's pick a color, a light color. Let's pick a light color. And remember, guys, you got to remember, dark goes on light, light goes on dark, right? Just be logical. Think about legibility. It's a whole other class, but I like to throw in as much as possible because it's very practical. You know, we're not learning to use this just to come in here and play in InDesign like it's a video game. We want to make stuff with this, right? So, also in your free time, look at other people's designs, look at other catalogs, look at other magazines, learn from it, think about what worked and what didn't work. You have trouble understanding it or reading it, they messed up. They did not deliver to you. All right, so we're going to kind of make a heading up here, all right? So I want to, as best I can, kind of draw my rectangle with a light color, it's light blue for me, right about like that. I'm going to show you an advantage of layers right here, right now. Okay. Now that you've got that done, here's a couple things you can do in the layers window. So what we want to do is create a new layer. So if you look down in the bottom right corner of the new layers window, there's two little buttons. One looks like a new piece of paper there, and then one looks like a Oscar the Grouch's trash can. I want you to click the new piece of paper there, like that. Okay, that pops that up and creates us a new layer. Boom, that easy. Now, a new layer is always going to be on top of wherever you were before. It always goes up with it. Climbing high into the sky. Okay? Now, our new layer is the layer that we're on. You know how I know that? Because it's highlighted in this blue, right? If I go back down to that, that's highlighted. Also notice there's like a little pencil symbol kind of on the right side there. That is correspondent to whatever layer that you're on. Then I want you to look at the far left column, and there are these little eyeballs. Check it out. Everything on layer 2, when I turn that eyeball on and off, it all disappears. And if I had stuff on layer 2 above, that would disappear too. But I don't have anything up there yet. But here's what I want to do. You can lock layers. Lock layers. Sounds kind of like locklear. Anyway, we're going to lock the bottom layer. So click just to the right of where the eyeball would be, and you get a little lock. It's on lockdown. Now, if you go back to your select tool, you can't get anything. Don't worry, you can always unlock it. But here's the advantage, okay? Go up to layer 2, highlight it, all right? And now we're going to create our first text segment. So we're going to create a couple up here. I'm just making this up as I go along, but this is some kind of form or handout or something informative. So we're going to select the type tool, which is this T. Should be the 6th one down. And again, you don't do this, but you could click and let go. But what I'm going to recommend that you do most of the time, unless there's a reason not to, is click, hold, and drag a text box. And I'm sure you guys have all made text boxes in something like PowerPoint maybe, or Publisher. Text boxes are your friend. You don't have to have them, but they're nice because they contain the text inside a space. And you can adjust it based on that. Of course, you are going to have plenty of fun adjusting things like font size and line spacing, make sure everything fits. I was doing it this morning at Woodford County Library for like 3 hours. That's what I did, because they had a template of it from last year, but they had more books on the list this year, so I had to squeeze them in. I had to find out, so I had to reduce and add more to the list. So you never know. What I was doing today was not sexy stuff at all, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Okay, so now we're in here typing. Now, this is our heading. So I'm just going to hold down Shift and type in capital HEADING, and I'm in black. Obviously, we're not going to leave it tiny like that, but we're going to go ahead and throw it up on the board. Has everybody been okay to see kind of where I'm going up on the top without me using the laser pointer? Okay. If you don't know where I'm pointing, let me know. I know the mouse is very small. Okay. Now that I'm on the type tool, a couple things you want to look at. Notice that the color pickers are a little different. Instead of a solid square, it's a T, but the T is filled in solidly. And then there's also a stroke for your text, which is sort of like a T with an outline. Okay. Also, on the type tool, you got a different set of tools up there that are all text related. So we're going to have fun with this. Now, the first one I'm going to do is center a line. And you're probably pretty familiar with this, I would think, if you've ever used Word or whatever. So you've got all these different ones. I'm not going to explain what each one of them does, but there's justify left, justify right, etc., etc. You got a lot of options. The next thing I want to do is adjust the size. So I am going to, first thing you want to do is highlight it. Because I think if you, yeah, if you're using, well, there's a couple different ways to do it. But highlighting is a surefire way. So with the type tool there, highlight your text, and then font is right here. Font type is right here. Font size is right here. So I'm going to take it off of Minion Pro. I'm going to go to something else. You guys go, I went to Cooper Black, but you can do whatever you want. I would recommend, again, you don't have to do it this way. Different strokes for different folks, but I would pick your font first, then size it, because If you've got it sized really nicely, but you decide you want a different font, you've been in that position before, right? You change the font and it's like a whole different scale, right? Like one font's 12 point can be totally different in size to another font's 12 point. So I would do it this way. And you know, you can still go back and forth, but it might save you some trouble. So I'm gonna just keep increasing the size till I'm happy. Notice how it is never going to go outside of this text box. In fact, what's going to happen when I get too big? Check this out. It's going to truncate it, and I've got this little warning down in the lower right that's saying to me, hey, there's more to it. There's more than meets the eye, like the Transformers. And when we get a big body of text, we're going to look at that here in a minute. Okay. Now, just a quick review. Yes, we can move the text around inside that text box. How? We can mess with alignment. We can mess with line spacing, even though we've only got one row. We'll look at that a little bit more when we have like a paragraph of text, which we're going to get in a second. But you can also always go back to your select tool. I want you to go back to your select tool. And now when you click on the heading, so you can, you know, if you want it a little lower, a little higher, you can move the text box around. It's its own thing, right? It's cool. I kind of love it. Pretty fun. All right. So you could always expand it if you wanted more. You can reduce it down, kind of crop it tight if you need to do it that way. Totally up to you. Okay? But it keeps that bit of text inside that box. And here's the real good thing. When you have a bunch of these up here, so let me just quickly, I know this is kind of a bad example, but okay. So say you've got multiple text boxes here, and you guys can take your time. You can make these as well. I just copied and pasted and resized. But because I've got the bottom layer locked, my background, I don't have to worry about selecting it again. If I need to change something about these and I want to select them all like that, if I didn't have them on their own layer, like I do, I just would have selected my background and everything. Well, this is not what I want to do. Does that make sense? And so typically, I know a lot of designers that don't do it this way, but I always do. And trust me, I am not an organized person, like at all. I mean, I kind of know where my stuff is, but it's not organized. But it just makes you work so much faster if you do organize stuff, and it makes it so much easier. So what I'll usually do is I'll have a background layer all on its own. I'll have a text layer all on its own, and I'll have a pictures layer, pictures and art all on its own. And sometimes more if they're needed. Just depends on how involved or detailed the document is. So let's actually step away from this for a minute. Let's lock that top layer. Let's unlock the bottom layer. Let's switch to the bottom layer. And let's make another rectangle down there, a different color. I'm going to do pink. This would be like baby colors. I'm going to make another rectangle down there, background color. And something that you can do to it, which is kind of fun, is you could put a gradient on it. Now that's the default gradient. I'm going to show you guys how to do this. We want our gradient window out. So the first thing I want you to do is go up to Window. And then it's down under Color. And then you want to click Gradient. Okay? It's going to bring up this little window, which is going to be fun. Any questions so far? Okay. Yes.
Give me a second to catch up.
Yeah, you're good. Do you need me to show it in the menu again, or?
No, I'm just adding the other box.
Okay. Make sure you are on the bottom layer and it's unlocked. You just want to use the rectangle tool, pick a color, and put it in.
So we've unlocked one, locked two.
Well, really what you...
Top layer is the most recent that you said to unlock, right? The top layer.
We want the top layer is our text layer. We want that locked.
Okay.
Bottom layer is our background layer. We want that unlocked.
Okay.
So let me get this. So the bottom layer, layer one, is where we put the new box.
Yes.
Okay. So that's
Yeah. It's the background for the bottom part of the document.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Sure. Take your time. All right. So let's see here.
How did you get your gradient box again?
You want to go up to Window, and then Color, and then Gradient is the third one down.
Okay.
So the gradient that's on here right now, does everybody have the gradient box out? The gradient that's on here now is not the one we're going to use. It's like a super simple white to black. But we want to go in here. There's hundreds you can make your own custom. So what you want to do is click on this slider on the bottom. See the two squares, white and black. So this first one, double click it, or well, no, you double click in an Illustrator. I'm sorry, but do click on it one time so you've got it selected, and then I think over here in the color area, make it something. I'm sure there's a way to even.
My box turns to black and white gradient when I make that white blend, the white water.
Yeah.
I need to. Okay.
So
I needed to unselect the box. Okay.
yeah, if you select the little, so these are like little color points, I guess you could call them on the gradient. You want to change those from white to black to other things, like the pink, for example, right? So now I can do something kind of cool like that. I don't know. Now, once you've got your gradient in here, and also you can do this if you don't want to make your own. I think you should be able to load. Maybe you can't load libraries of gradients in here. Yes.
I missed how you got the color and the gradient.
All right. So
Yeah,
which?
I did too.
All right. Start all over here. All right. So Window, Color, Gradient. Now, take me back to. I don't know if it will let me, but so what you want to do is click on the line And of course, you can move these guys around, but you don't need to. At least not yet. And then you want to click on one of them. And then with that clicked, go over here to where your color picker is in the lower right, the color, and pick a different color. Like adjust the sliders till it changes. It's not as easy. The gradient in Illustrator is not exactly easy, but this is even more convoluted. Kind of an indirect method of getting to it. Mm-hmm.
And then how do you apply the gradient then?
Oh, good question. So use the gradient tool, which is this guy right here. So make sure you're on that. And then basically where you start your click, you're starting with this square. Well, actually you're not starting with that square, you're starting with that. And then that's where you end. So if I go all the way down, I've got a very long and gradual one, like so. But if I do short, looks like that. Does that make sense? And then your angle is sort of how it's gonna appear. And you can keep going over and over and over, so until you get, did that work?
Yeah.
More or less? You can keep going over and over until you get somewhere where you like it. And then once you get it where you like it, you can move these and it'll change it. You can even, if you click down here where there isn't a square, you'll add one. And then of course you could add in a new color. So you can get wild with it. And there's these midpoints on here. You can kind of move, change how they transition. So it actually can be a lot of fun, the gradient. I like them. Okay, so this is going to be our our main text field. So here's what we want to do again. Everybody take a look at my screen. We got to make sure we all do this together, okay? Is everybody ready? Well, first of all, has everybody got their gradient somewhere where they kind of are happy with it? Okay. Let's lock that layer. Lock the bottom layer. Lock the bottom layer. Unlock the top layer. Click on the top layer. Got to do all three of those things. So your top layer should be blue in color. Okay? And then you want to make a text box. So go over to the T over there. And let's make a nice big text box here. I mean big. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine, but make it big. Cover up a good chunk of the page, because this is where our body text is going to go. And once you're at that point, here's what I would like you to do. I would like you to go on the internet. Do you know where? Well, actually, we may not. Yeah, we're going to need to do it. So, Safari. Does everybody know Safari? It's the blue compass down on the kind of the left. You click that app, and then here's what I want you to do. You don't have to do Abe Lincoln, but that's what I'm going to do just as an example. We're going to go to the Wikipedia page for Abe Lincoln. You do your whoever. We need a picture and we need text. So we're just going to throw some junk in. We need a picture, we need text. This gives you guys a little bit of practice on how to get it in there rather than just already being there. Which is probably some good skills to have. Okay. Now, we're going to do the text first and then we're going to do the picture. So I want you to do this. Highlight a portion of the text like I just did there. Click and drag over it. Everybody feel pretty comfortable with copy and pasting? Okay, take that as a yes. So I'm going to right click copy. Then I'm going to leave the internet for a minute. I'm going to go back to InDesign by clicking on the icon down at the bottom like that. Then I'm going to, with my type tool, having it copied, I'm going to click inside the text box. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say paste. There might be some weird looking pink squares around some of the letters and stuff. Well, that's just part of it. That's coming from the HTML, more or less. It's some web stuff getting, but you should more or less have gotten decent looking text, especially if you went from Wikipedia. Everybody do okay on that? Cool.
No, not really.
No, that's going to happen with the internet.
Okay.
You may or may not be getting your text from the internet. I'm not sure how you'd be getting your text. You might be writing it from scratch. You might be pulling it from a Word document. There is a way to import a Word document and keep most of the formatting, but I would have to research on it to tell you. But it's Googleable. We've looked into it before because that's questions come up.
They are actually called FBA.
Yeah. It's like international punctuation something. I don't know.
Phonetic something.
Phonetic. Huh. All right. Well, one thing. Let's do this. I hear a lot of clicking going on. I'm going to switch back to my selection tool. Here's what I want everyone to do. Let's make a new page. Even if you already have more pages, let's make a new page. There's a pages window over here. I've only got 2 pages, but I'm still going to make a new page. So we'll go over here to pages, and you guessed it, it's that same little button down in the lower right corner that looks like a little new piece of paper kind of flipping up there. Everybody see that? Click that dude. All right, that's how you make new pages. Also in this window over here, spaghetti-o. What happened? You make too many new pages?
No, I ended up making layers, and I clicked on pages.
Ooh.
But I have all these extra layers now.
Well, if you do, you can destroy them with that trash can. But don't destroy ones that you need. Should just need the bottom 2, which should be the red and the blue. Yes?
I don't know if there's an issue because we did the master thing of mine, but when I add pages, it doesn't look like yours. It's
Yeah, you're probably still in the master pages. That's good that you thought of that. Do you see?
just because it said master.
Do you see where it says none?
No.
So
Oh yeah, up top. Yeah.
double click on that, and then add a page.
It's not letting me.
But is this not your new page? Though?
It is. It just doesn't.
When
like
you-
I don't have access to it.
When you double click on it, it's not going to look that different.
It won't let me even highlight none.
It's okay.
Okay.
You don't need to. Again, double click on it and then add a page. All the pages. So that's where you think about the books and the magazines that you have, page numbers, title of the book, and name of the author. It appears on every page. So that's what those do. It's kind of like in Word when you add in footnotes and, it kind of like lives in its own little place. But mainly you're going to be working with pages themselves. Right? Okay. Any questions on that? Now, with your scroll wheel, make sure you're in your... Oh, dang. It's doing that to me, too. I need to get back. There we go. Okay. So you want to make sure you've double-clicked down here somewhere so you're back in your main list. And scroll up and down. It should look like my screen, basically. This is a typical InDesign document look. All right. The pages are set up as facing, so it's like a book. But increasingly, that doesn't matter. You guys read ebooks? You know how you can like choose on your Kindle if you want them like one at a time or you want them like a real book, left, right, left, right. This accommodates that. Now, what I want you to do with the select tool on your big text box, if you haven't already done this, do you see the little red plus sign in the lower right corner? I want you to click it once Click it twice, actually. Click it until you get what a cursor like I've got. Get rid of these here.
Now, how did you get your little red box? I've been going back and forth.
Yep. You want to be on the black arrow, the selection tool. And you may have to click on it 2 times, but maybe once. Basically what you've done is you're going to continue out the text into a new text box. So with your cursor looking like this, do this. Click and drag. And there's the rest of the text. And it gets even cooler. I'm going to back up a little bit, so I'm going to zoom out some. Actually, I went to the total wrong place. I need to move this up here. Now here's something that's cool. I can literally, everybody check this out. I can go up in here, so I'm typing up in this first part of the text box. Check out what happens when I hit a few returns. Everybody see that? Anybody seen that? They're still connected forever and always, which you may want, you may not want. There's ways to get around it, but that's the default. Make any sense? Photoshop's definitely not going to do that or help you in that way, in that regard, in any regard, whatever. Last but not least, we need to look at pictures real quick, and then I think we're going to be basically out of time. Go back to the internet real fast, if you can. Find a picture on there. I think you got it already, right? Right click on the picture. Probably going way too fast, aren't I? We gotta save an image.
Just save to downloads, right?
I would save it to the desktop,
Okay.
but so I'm gonna go to save image as. I'm gonna put it on the desktop where it's nice and easy to find. I don't care what it's called. I'm gonna hit save. I'm gonna go back to InDesign now. I'm also gonna zoom back in. Here's what you want to do. This is an interesting way to do it. It's not the only way to get a picture in, but it's my preferred way. Go up to File, Place, go to your desktop, which is where I hope you saved it. You should see your picture. Okay, double click on your picture. He will pop in there, in which you can get the selection tool. And you should be able to move him around, but you're going to quickly find that it, I didn't even want to do that. I messed up. Sorry, guys. There we go. I hit undo a couple of times, so I got this. Did everyone get this where their picture is free and they're able to move it around?
I did. Mine's very poor quality, but that's a story for another day.
Well, was it initially poor?
No.
Okay, check this out. Right click on it. Down almost at the bottom, display performance. Do high quality and see if that makes it look a little better. I used to always get terrified when I put them in and they looked so bad. Did it help it?
Okay, I see it. High quality.
Yes. Yeah, you may have something different going on, but
I think I just need a new image.
all right. Did you guys have questions?
Yeah, you said, okay, once we saved it to the desktop, and you said
Yes.
go to
File. Place.
and then place,
That's right.
then desktop.
Right. You just browse for your file. This is sort of how InDesign works, but you know what? It's fine until you start moving stuff around. If I moved my InDesign file to somewhere else, or I moved my photo to somewhere else, it's going to have a broken link and it ain't going to be in there anymore. So whenever you're working on InDesign, I would recommend putting everything you're using inside a folder. All the assets that you're using, which means, art, pictures, text, all that. Keep it all together and move it around as a unit. I want you guys to kind of, did everybody get a picture in there? Everyone did? All right, so when you click and drag on it, the picture itself, not the circle in the middle that kind of looks like something from a DSLR, you'll move everything together. If you click here in the minute, then click there in the middle, then you can actually stretch your picture. You can change the crop of the picture. So when it's a red line, you can do this. This is what I like about InDesign. You can easily crop stuff. There's a lot more you can do kind of in this vein with putting text boxes around text. Unfortunately, I don't really have much time to talk about it, but it's called text wrap. Text frame options. There's so many options. I wish I had more time to talk about it, but we used to have an InDesign part 2, but
Windows or window and then text wrap is
it's window
maybe.
text wrap. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's fun. So you can see this could be very advantageous for doing like newsletters and stuff like that, you know. I think it's a lot easier to do this kind of design in than something like Publisher or anything of the sort like that, you know.
So what's the big difference between this and Publisher?
Oh gosh.
So many.
Duplos and Legos, man. Yeah.
Really learning Publisher because I didn't figure that I would need it.
I haven't used it in so long, it's hard for me to say.
Isn't
But
it for like journalists or people?
it's technically supposed to be a similar program to InDesign. Similar, not exactly the same, but similar. And it's just it's not on Mac because I don't think it's on Mac. Even though Word is on Mac and Excel is on Mac, I'd have to check. I'm not sure. Couple last thoughts. When you're saving files, you want to save as an InDesign file. So say we want to save this. We go to File, Save As. You guys probably know the drill. This is where you name it. This is where you decide where it's going to live. But down here, this is a very important part. See where it says Format. InDesign CC 2017. Now, InDesign is not backwards compatible. Not backwards compatible. Photoshop is, but InDesign is not. So that means if you save this now as a 2017 and try to open it up in a much older version, it's not going to open. There is a workaround. You save it as this, IDML. Why it's that way, I have no idea. It's utterly stupid, but just so you know, because it's gotten me before. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, I can finish this at home. No. You're SOL, man. So there's that. I'm going to hit cancel because if you ever want to get back in here and edit it, change things, add to it, etc., 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 always save your InDesign version. It's like saving your Photoshop version. If you've ever been in the situation where you wanted to change something on a JPEG and you can't get that text back ever again, same thing with InDesign. But when you're sending it to the printer or you're uploading to your blog or whatever, what you're probably going to do is go to File and then Export, and you're going to make a PDF out of it. And first you pick where it's going to go, so I'm just going to say Desktop and Save, and then now, obviously don't have time to talk about this, but you get a couple options here. You get a couple. What's nice is there's these presets up top. Smallest file size, press quality, high quality print can tend to be big. You'd be surprised how big some of these PDFs get. They don't have to be. You can compress them down. As I'm sure you've noticed, you've downloaded some pretty crisp looking PDFs that are like tiny, right? 10, 15 megabytes, something like that. So you can do it. You don't necessarily have to go in there and start changing everything. You could start with just the presets and see what you get. There's other ways to reduce them down. Usually, if you have any kind of issue, it's going to be that you got a bigger file than you want. Like too big to email, i.e. over 20 or 25 megabytes or something. So that's basically the class. Questions? I know it's a ton of information. I would recommend you go in and play with it a lot. At least, it's good for me. I mean, I know everyone learns different, but it helped me a lot to just go in and goof around and say, oh, what does it do if I do this? And Google's your friend. A lot of good stuff online. So, yep. But that's about it. That's all the new material. So if you guys have questions, feel free to ask them. There's a survey if you would